So, you get this big gift, and it's a house, a piece of land, basically property. But guess what? You think it's yours, but when the person is deceased or has moved on, somebody says it's not. How does that work? We're going to tell you all about if somebody gives you a property, is it really yours? Are you really the owner? Stay tuned to hear Attorney Greg Stanley. The Sheila Smoot Show starts right now. Welcome into the Sheila Smoot Show. I'm Sheila Smoot. Good to have you along. And you know, I have missed this gentleman because he's just such a wealth of information, particularly when it comes to your land, your property, things that you want to own or things that you could own, all things real estate. And I am just glad and pleased as punch to have back with us Attorney Greg Stanley from Stanley and Associates in Irondale, Alabama. How you doing, Greg?
I'm great, Sheila, and it's so good to hear from you and get to see you. Now, I did get to see you at the Candidates Forum a couple of weeks ago before the election.
Mm-hmm. And that was interesting because it was in an area that is totally growing in that Ross Bridge area, in that Hoover, Alabama group. So it was a very intriguing thing, not to mention that the daddy-daughter dance was there, too.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed talking to the candidates and hearing what they want to accomplish and the things that they want to improve. And it was just it was a good experience, and plus getting to hear you speak, that was really nice.
Thank you for having me as well and doing that. The Atlas Group. Tell me about Atlas, A-T-L-A-S, Atlas. Tell me about that group.
Atlas, it started off as the Alabama Tax Lien Association.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we started it was, frankly, we started it to do education because investors were doing things that are illegal, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know they were illegal because they just didn't know. For example, if one of our listeners doesn't pay their taxes and someone buys the tax lien on their house, that does not give the tax lien investor the right to go to that house and to talk to those people and to tell them they have to get out of that house. That's harassment. It's wrong. They just don't have that right. And a lot of people were doing that. They didn't know any better. So we started this organization called Alabama Tax Lien Association, and we invited all the investors that we knew to come join it. And at first it was free. We just got together and we talked about what you can and what you cannot do. And we have a very ethical group. You know, we talk about what you shouldn't do, and we've had to kick people out of the group. Now, interestingly, though, we started having dinner. So people started paying $15 a month. Mm-hmm. to pay for the dinners that we were buying. And now the group's got about 100 people, and we have dinners once a month, and we talk about strategies, and it's grown from just tax liens to all sorts of real estate investments. And the reason I really like this group, this Atlas group, is that we always look for solutions for where everybody benefits. Mm-hmm. Can't always get them, but we always look for them.
It's a very good group, and I enjoy it because the dialogue about real estate is just unreal. How many areas of real estate really do impact people's lives? And so, you know, I do like the group. I'm glad you expanded. Thank you for having me as one of your members because it's just a lot of information. I had no clue. If I knew what I knew 20 years ago, all of us would be in a different place. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be on the beach.
So.
I'd be on the beach.
Well, I'd be there with you. We would still be talking.
I'd own an island. I'd own an island. No, I just own a piece of it. No, I just want a condo on the beach.
All right, well, let me ask you this.
Yes.
When you pass away, are you going to have a will and leave that condo to your daughter, or are you not going to have a will?
No, I'm going to have a will, and I'm going to, that's a good question. I really would like for her to sell it and do some other investment, because at that point in time, who knows what the market may be or what the needs are. And, those property gets old, but I keep up property, but I'm not going to let it fall in or anything. But will it still be making the money? Yeah, I think of it as a forever investment, as retirement income that may be down the line when I get to that point or something like that. But I do see it as a long-term thing. But I guess if I left it to somebody or gifted it to somebody like her or somebody else that I like better than her. Kidding. I tell you, you don't have to like your kids. You don't have to, but
She's listening,
it helps.
she's not going to be happy with any of this.
She's not, but oh well. She's not up as early as we are. But at any rate, I thought about that, Greg. That's a very good question. And then she's being an only child. And so many people, or, I may have a favorite niece or nephew. I don't. No, I'm kidding. I do. But it's a bunch of them. So the bottom line is, I want to be able to do that. But,
Look, you know what happens if you don't put that in your will?
What?
Well, it's pretty common. It happens a lot more than it should. We call that property heirs property. Some people say heir property, but I got in the habit of saying heirs property.
Heirs?
Heirs, like your offspring.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are going to inherit the property, So I started saying heirs because people thought I was saying heir, like AIR, heir property. What's that? Well, heirs property, that's easier to get. And I like it better because one of the things folks don't really understand is that with a will, you can designate who is going to execute your estate. You can say, hey, I want this person to take care of things. And for me, it was always my sister. I always had my sister Judy as the person who was going to take care of my estate. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a great estate, but I did have 4 kids. I do have 4 kids.
Wow, yeah.
So when the kids were still in school, my wife and I designated my sister, and essentially my sister was going to be responsible for all of our assets. So the children would own it, but it would be executed and taken care of by my sister. And the reason why we did that is because if you pass away and you don't have your property in some sort of a will, it becomes heir property or heirs property. And that is a burden on your children. Some people may think, oh, well, if I do will it to them, that'll be a burden on them. No, it's a burden if you don't. And the reason is because they are still going to be liable and they are still going to own the property because that's the law in Alabama. As soon as a person who owns property dies, the property is immediately transferred to their heirs.
Right.
The problem is we don't know who their heirs are until a judge tells us.
Wow. That's that probate piece.
That's right.
Ends up in probate courts, right?
That's right, yeah. So if you want to avoid your children having to go and open up an estate with no will, and then, you and I have spoken before about the fighting, that can happen when people, first of all, people are already full of grief and they have all this energy inside them. They need to let it out. And unfortunately, oftentimes that bad energy, they let it out at their siblings.
Right.
So heir property, if someone, if you are the heir, do you know anybody do you have a story about this? Do you know anybody who's...
Yeah, I do. There's a few people that call me. I am a licensed real estate agent, so I deal with a lot of property issues and things of that nature. And one in particular trying to set this up, knowing that the inevitable was going to happen and knowing that that person may end up being deceased in a short amount of time, if not a year or 2. Well, that has happened. Yeah. And this person was paying the taxes and, constantly, but there's another sister to the actual heir. So that sister is now the only living original heir from the parent that passed it down to this group of children who are one's in their 90s. The one that left us, rest in peace, is in her 90s. So she's gone, but her sister's still alive. But she was the one in her 90s, paying all the taxes every year. So now her children are left. Well, they tried to straighten this out before the inevitable happened, and now I don't know and haven't asked where that is. And then she has two brothers. One is deceased, but again, the sister of her mother is still living, and she has no children. But
Okay, so
she
what
has,
you
get this, I'm gonna throw. She has some maybe adopted children.
okay, maybe adopted. So what you're describing is a nightmare. It's multi-generational heirs property. So what I heard you say is great grandma passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and she left it to grandma.
Mm-hmm.
But grandma had a sister, right?
Correct.
And now, and when great grandma left it to grandmama, there was no deed. She just said, "Here, you take the house," right?
Mm-hmm. It goes to you.
So-
You children can have it.
Yeah. So when grandmama passes,
Mm-hmm.
who owns the house? Well, you might think, oh, well, it's her kids, but it might be grandmama's sister. You said she's still living.
That is
Because
correct.
if
And yeah, but the grandmother was paying all the taxes. They didn't pay anything.
Right.
She was taking care of
Unfortunately-
everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're going to have to go to court to prove that, so that the heirs, that grandmama's
What?
heirs, you're going to have to go to court. And that we have, in Alabama, we've got two different, what's called statutes of limitations. What that means is after this period of time, you can't get the property back. So it's a statute that limits your right to get the property back. So if grandmama was living on the property and paying the taxes for 20 years, her children can probate the estate for grandmama and get the deed put into that estate, and then they will own it. Then the children, it will be passed down to the children, and they'll own it. However, if they can't prove that, well, then that house is going to be half owned by sister, even though she didn't pay any taxes and she didn't pay any upkeep or anything.
Wow. So take me back. So the living heir, which is grandma's daughter, who took grandma to pay for this every year to make sure that land wouldn't be taken away,
Yep.
she can go down right now to the probate judge's office and to those people there, and she can file to be the sole owner of the property?
Well, what she's going to do is she's going to open a probate estate for the lady who passed away. And then the probate estate, now remember that we're saying that she didn't have a will.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge of the probate estate is going to say, well, we need to determine whether this property was actually owned by grandmama or whether by sister or by, if something else. And what they're going to do is they're going to say, we need to get at least two more attorneys involved. And they're going to say, what you need to do is you need to get somebody to do a title search on that property to find out who the last deed was. So whoever the last deed was. And then whenever I'm asked to do these probate estates, and you should know this, when I'm asked to do probate estates, you should know this. You can go down there, and they have a packet. In Jefferson County, they have a packet that you can do. And some people, younger people who have good eyesight and stamina, those people, they can muddle through it, and they can do their estate. They can open it up for their loved one who passed. Now, 9 times out of 10, though, it's better that you have an attorney
I agree.
to help you with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that expensive. So
I was about to ask you that because attorneys can get expensive, but it's not that expensive if you hire an attorney to open that up, particularly one that's named Greg Stanley and Associates.
Well, and the reason, and I'm not better than any other lawyer. That's a legal thing I got to say, but it's also true. I mean, I'm telling you, the reason why we are able to keep our prices down, our charges down, is because we bill by the hour. But what that means is all those things that the executor or the personal representative of the estate, in other words, the heir, all the things that they can do, we get them to do them. So if, for example, if we need the addresses of all the people in the family, we don't go looking for them. We ask the person who opened the estate. We ask them to get those things. And when we need to track somebody down and go give them a message, we ask that person to do it. That way you don't have to pay us to do those things. So there's a lot of things that the executor of the estate or sometimes it's a personal representative, depending on what kind of probate it is, that they can do that will save a lot of money. For example, with really big estates, the lawyer will oftentimes charge a percentage of the entire estate as their fee.
Okay.
Well, that's okay, but really the reason why they're doing that is because of the time that it takes them to make an inventory of all the things. Because all the things that need to be distributed and taken care of, the judge has to approve where they go.
Okay.
So making that list is the first responsibility of the personal representative or the executor of the estate. And rather than have your attorney do that, because he's going to charge you by the hour,
right?
We actually have a form, an inventory form, and we say, here, fill this out. If it's a car, put the VIN number here, and the year it was, and all these things. And we have all of the stuff that we would go get, but we allow the decedent to do it. Now, the decedent's heirs to do it. If they don't want to do it, we'll do it. We're happy to do it, but we're going to charge you for doing it.
Right.
Well, because we do that, we are able to keep the prices a little bit lower than if we didn't do that. However,
Greg, go ahead. Once you do that, what?
Once you do that, then the judge has the authority to say who owns that property.
Wow.
And if you give notice, to the sister, so grandmama died, but her sister's still living. If you give notice to the sister, hey, look, we're doing this estate, we're taking care of all this stuff, and we have these heirship affidavits that the attorney drafted for us that show this stuff went to mama or grandmama, well, then sisters are either going to have to come to court and try to argue against the affidavits that we did, the affidavits that say what you just said. Well, great-grandma gave this to grandmama. She said so. We know that.
And that could be the daughter saying, hey, I know my great-grandmother gave to my grandmother who gave to my mother. I know that happened. That's just one affidavit. Right. Do I need more than one? Do I need two or three?
We typically get three, and we always ask for the preacher to give one. Because who probably gave, who was probably there for the baptism and for the funeral,
Yeah. And who else can give an affidavit that says, hey, I know for a fact she owned this property, it's hers, and there are no other heir people who can get their hands on it?
Well, anybody who knows, but next door neighbors. There's a very weird case going on right now, and you know me, Sheila. I like to go out and talk to people. I know most lawyers stay in their offices or whatever, but I went out to this lady's house. This was just about 3 weeks ago, and I went out to this lady's house, and the house is kind of abandoned, and it's got some broken windows in the back. And then I went over next door, across the street, but next door to the brother's house. To her son's house, and it was his estate that we're looking at. And his house is abandoned, and but you can tell he only just passed, because the house is all taken care of, but it's locked up, and now there's a broken window in the back of it. And as I was looking at these houses, I saw this little old lady, on the half block above. So she was in the, her house was up against the front of the road, but also on the alley. So I hollered at her, and I said, hey, do you mind if I walk over? And she was real sweet, and I walked over, and I said, did you know Miss Hattie? And she said, well, yeah.
Sure
I grew
did.
Up with her.
I knew her all my life.
I grew up with her. And I said, well, whose house is that then? And she told me. And she said, well, and I said, well, the son over here, his daughter is now claiming she owns both those houses.
Right.
And she started laughing. And she said, well, no. And when they filed this thing, they said that there were only that Hattie's son was the only person who had a claim to the property. Well, this old lady that I was speaking to gave me the names of his 7 brothers and sisters.
What? You are kidding me. She had been that neighbor that long. She's like a half-sister, like a first cousin. She knew everything, didn't she?
And it was funny. She was so funny. Sweet little lady.
She was happy to tell you, let me tell you something I know.
And she started saying the names, and then she's like, oh, wait. You want their real names. This is just what we call them.
Oh, they had nicknames. Everybody in the South has a nickname. Deep South has even initials and kind of. My dad had friends named Rabbit and Squirrel. I'm like, who is Rabbit and Squirrel?
Yep.
Yeah.
I had three uncles. One of them was called Ranger, one was Cowboy, and the other was Buffalo.
And did you know their real
That's
names
real.
as a child? Like, I never knew my Uncle Ree.
I did know their real names. So
I had an
called them
Uncle Ree. I had an Uncle Ree, and guess what it was? He had initials, R.E., Uncle Ree. I'm like, well, what is his real name? Sumter County, York, Alabama. Hi, York, Alabama. Uncle Ree. So is it R-E-E? R-E? It's, what does R-E stand for? Nothing. I just couldn't believe it. But, yeah, but you're right.
So here's the lesson of the conversation we've been having, Sheila. And I love talking real estate, and I love talking real estate with you. But I like providing information to folks. I'm going to tell you, your best defense against your children having to fight and your children having to go to court and losing time and money and everything is to have a will and make sure that you have that will and that your lawyer has a copy of it. And that way, if that will disappears somehow, everybody knows. Well,
wills disappear, or they say she wasn't in her right mind when she did the will, or it's not authenticated. Who did? That's not the original will. I have the original will. So what? I mean, that is such a factor.
If the lawyer has it, and because we do too, we keep an original and we give an original to our client.
Okay.
And we put our cards, on that will, so everybody, hopefully everybody can know where to go when Mama passes. Call Stanley and Associates.
They got the packet.
The will in their safe.
Yep, they got the packet.
And this is the one that we can say this is real. But you'd be surprised how often I hear, and this happened in my own family. I told you the story before, Sheila. In my own family, well, Mama had the will because she knew she was going to pass, so she was looking at the will. She had it in her nightstand table, but it wasn't there anymore after she died.
Oh, and it was always there, right?
It was there because she was going to pass. So she got it out of her safe, and she had it sitting with her. She's reviewing it, and sure enough, weird. And this is my family. This was my. It was my second favorite aunt.
Your second favorite aunt. Oh.
Yeah, Aunt Marie was always my favorite, and she knew it.
And your second favorite aunt took the paper?
No. These are different families.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The first aunt was from my father. It was my father's sister. The second aunt was my mother's brother's wife. Yeah.
Okay.
So but it was supposedly one of my cousins.
One of your cousins took your mother's will out of the nightstand after she passed away.
That's what they say.
And what were they looking for?
Well, we never found the will.
So this stuff had to go through probate. You had to go through all the bells and whistles, and wow.
I had to notify all these people and all these stuff. So I say this story just to let you know, man, happened to me. It happened in my family. People get mad and they fight. I've seen it twice in my family where somebody dies and people stop talking to one another, And it's not just about the money. Don't say, oh, they're greedy. I don't think that's it. I think that these are Christian people, but they're so full of that grief energy, and they got to do something with it, and they don't have a good outlet, and it comes out as fighting and wishing that their loved one hadn't passed. I mean, I haven't lost a parent. I can't imagine what that's going to be like.
Right.
But I understand.
I have, but we didn't fight. I have lost my dad, and you know what? My dad, who always says, you look like your mom, but Sheila, you take care of the business. Your brothers will take care of your mother. But you know what? He had everything, and he told me where it was. He told all of us where it was. So we were fortunate. My dad had a document. I don't know if it was so much a will, but it kind of was. But there was nothing. We let my little brother in Michigan take everything, and he was there. He took care of everything. Anyway, we were like, hey. And so now my mama's left. So, we just say we're not coming back to Michigan, me and my oldest brother. Everything will revert to him, whatever it is, except she does have policies that she's had, but we all have our names in them. So I'll double check that because I am going to be going to that part of the region. I'm going to Michigan soon to see her, to visit, because she asked me, say, hey, we need to get together on some of this stuff. She asked us to come home. Me and my oldest brother in Alabama asked us to come to Michigan. So, it does happen in families. We didn't fight over everything. I know we're not, but Greg, it does happen. It happened to you twice. That's crazy.
Yeah, in my family, and I like my family.
I like mine. But, strange things happen when, you got stuff on the table.
Yeah, and so that's why I believe that it's not just greed; it's the grief, and you can't predict how you're going to respond. So what do we want to do? We want to make sure that we take care of this stuff.
Okay.
Heir property is bad. Heir's property is bad, and the best way to do it is to make sure that you write it all out. Somebody that like you and your family, everybody knew. But at least have that will so that everybody knows what's going to happen. But if you do receive heir property, you still need to go open probate. Because here's the thing, no matter what, even though the law says that property passed when that person died, that's true, but who did it pass to? It passed to the heirs. Only a judge can say who the heirs are. So if someone dies, it has to go before a judge. Whether it's a probate judge or a circuit court judge, for other reasons, it's got to go before a judge when somebody passes.
Folks, Attorney Greg Stanley, welcome into the Sheila Smoot Show. I'm Sheila Smoot. Greg, thank you very much for that tidbit of information about heirs property, HEIRS. Tell us how we can get in touch with you if we want to talk further or get a consultation from you and your team.
Well, I'll tell you, we have just updated our telephone system. I've been getting complaints that people can't get through. So we just updated our telephone system. So when you call, there's going to be a little menu there. And if everything doesn't work, just press 1, because that's the girl who works right up front, and she'll take the call and figure out what to do with it. But try to use that menu. It'll tell you where, listen to them and try to use them. But dial this number, 205-451-4196. It's 205-451-4196. And you don't have to ask for me. Just tell them what's your problem, what's your concern, what your issue is. And and either Holly or Amanda or Mai is going to make sure to take care of you and get your information and get an attorney to give you a call back. All
right. Greg Stanley, attorney at law, talking real estate and heir property. Greg, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. I'm Sheila Smoot. Always a pleasure. I'm Sheila Smoot. Don't be a sucker, be a consumer. And welcome into the Sheila Smoot Show. We're wrapping this segment up with attorney Greg Stanley. Remember, at the end of the day, he just told you, make sure you take care of your business or your business, whichever one you say. We'll see you next week.
I'm Angela Webb-Weinberg, your Jefferson County Treasurer. Every new year, I think about the goals I want to set. And one of the most powerful is financial confidence. That's why I created Get Fit Finance and Training. It's a hands-on program that helps families, workers, and students learn to budget, build, and grow, all together. Financial wellness isn't just about numbers, it's about opportunity and peace of mind. So let's start strong this year and get fit together.